Mark Wheatley, and welcome to episode 102 of the Weekly podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's our first recording since actually it's our first recording since the 12th of December, and I was thinking that's probably the longest break that I've had from recording. It probably wasn't supposed to work out that way, but it did. Luckily enough that we contacted a number of people in November. We obviously contacted Tracy to get our 100 episode recorded, but the people in and around that, very lucky to have them all come on in a short space of time. So I recorded 4 or 5 in a 2-week period, say. So it was really nice kind of get a break from it. But the brain is always like going back to it to think like, oh, who could I have on? Like, who would be an interesting guest? And then I thought like it might be nice to do a solo episode, because it's good to check in, myself from time to time. I don't do it that often. I don't want to bore you, I suppose. But yeah, it's nice to do it. And, obviously I prefer having guests because it's less talking for me, but I don't mind coming on. I thought there's a couple of things I want to go over that I think are quite important to talk about, even if it just puts an idea in your head and you can go away and maybe talk to someone else about it, or keep an eye out for people and things like that. Obviously, I want to thank Gary and Paul for coming on our last episode to talk about the Beatles documentary, Get Back. It was a really great conversation we had. You should check it out if you haven't done so already. Even if you're not into the Beatles, it's just one of those. I like listening to podcasts because I like listening to people who are enthusiastic about the subject matter that they're talking about. Because it always rubs off, even if it's not the subject that maybe say it's in the front of your mind or universe. It's still nice to kind of listen to people who are into something, and especially when there was 3 of us on and we were just banging on about the Beatles. And it's the second time the lads have come on. They're really like knowledgeable on the Beatles, which is great. And I like to think that's the one thing that I'm knowledgeable on. So I was very happy to have them on. I'd like to welcome aboard the Weekly podcast train to Nathan. Nathan contacted me. I met him actually at the Christmas party for the Fusion gym, and he's helping us out basically with some promotion and things like that, and how to get the podcast out there a little bit more. And he's been doing a brilliant job over the last few weeks. We are seeing an upturn in viewers and listeners, and that's what we want to do: get it out there and have people enjoy the content, but most importantly, be able to check in with their mental health, and remember to do that as much as you can. So that's really important. So welcome, Nathan, and thank you very much for contacting us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Very, very important. It's just, we want to get it out there. We want to get people watching, and while we have this kind of dingy setup, we hope to improve at some point, but at the moment it seems to be working fine. So it's all good. On my time off, I obviously Christmas happened. It was nice. My father made an excellent dinner, as always. Thank you, Pierce. I went up to Dublin for a few days, up to my mum. It was really nice to get up there, just relax, try and eat. I did actually really make a concerted effort to eat well over Christmas, and for the most part, I think I did well. I think the quality streets nearly caught up with me in certain places, including the gym, actually. And apart from that, though, I think I did all right. I also did a bit of running up there, out Dunleary Pier, and that really, it's nice views, scenic. I tried to do the cold water swim. I got in I'll just say I got into a certain point in my body and hit there, and I was like, no, I'm getting out again. Don't see it as a failure. I didn't want to see it as a failure, and think that's the way to look at it. Maybe, look, I'm going to continue doing it. Maybe I'll miss January and February. I don't know yet. I'll have to talk to Josh about it. But if I do, so what? We'll go in March, and we'll get back to it. No pressure. There's no point in doing that. Just putting yourself under pressure about things. It's supposed to be enjoyed. What else? Oh yeah, but I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac lately. That's another interesting thing that I kind of realized that I was not defending. That's the wrong word. I was bigging up George Harrison in both Beatles episodes, but obviously in the last one, the most recent, I was bigging him up again, and I realized that like Christine McVie in Fleetwood Mac is kind of in that position as well, where there's two people in front of her with regards to the limelight, but she's written, probably, well, some of their best songs. And then I was like going through bands in my head, and I was thinking Alex James and the bass player in Blur, and who was the other one? There was Malcolm Young in AC/DC. Not a big fan of AC/DC, but I appreciate his rhythm style. And I kind of think I have this certain thing that I start thinking about the person in the background when it comes to bands, the ones that are maybe not, the lead singer or the the lead guitarist. If we're talking about rock bands, they're the two that normally take most of the limelight, most of the air away from the rest. And I think I have this something within me that draws me to the third person, as such, the third person in bands. And yeah, it's just something and then I was going through all her songs, and she's a ridiculously good songwriter. One of the best for a generation, I would say. But anyway, I digress. I'll have a little drink after that, actually. So I'm going to talk about a couple of subjects, like I said, that were on my mind before we get the guests return next week. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that I've spoken to a couple of people about, and they believe that they suffer from this, and they believe that without having been diagnosed, with it by a doctor, but they believe that they suffer from this. So I wanted to kind of look into seasonal affective disorder. I want to kind of obviously explain what it is, the effect it has on people, causes, and things like that. So I made a series of notes. So this may be kind of bitty in a sense, but I'll try and keep it as smooth as possible. But so what seasonal affective disorder is, I mean, it's pretty much a clue in the title, kind of a situation. But I was looking up on the Mayo Clinic website. So it's a type of depression that's related to changes in seasons. Okay, so that's fair enough. One would think that would mean during the the autumn, winter season that's when it affects people. But it says here, like, the symptoms begin and end at the same time for people, which is probably in one way good because when it's ending, but in another way it's terrible because when it's beginning. So it's kind of on the way when summer starts to fade away and autumn starts, that it's coming. But it can also be the opposite way. It can also be you can have the depression in the summer, in the spring, summertime. So, but that's obviously a lesser likely. I don't have any numbers as regard to percentage of the people that suffer from either way, but it did say on the website that it's obviously a lot less when it comes to spring, summer, for obvious reasons, which we will get into it. So the symptoms include, and this is important to kind of look into, because maybe that this is something you think about, because if you listen to Irish people talk about tiredness, then be I feel tired today, and if you don't say it, somebody else will. They'll always say, "Oh, it could be the weather," and that's it is something that we say a lot, and maybe there's something a little more deeper than that. So the symptoms include listlessness, feeling down, lack of interest in hobbies, low energy, sleep problems, craving carbs, or overeating, which obviously leads to weight gain, concentration problems, feeling hopeless, worthless or guilty, suicidal ideation, or irritability. So that list there would line up with a list with regards to depression in general. But I guess the whole point of the diagnosis within what's the name of the manual? DSM? I think it's DSM. I think they're on number 5 now, but I think it's DSM-5. But I suppose the point of it, sorry, with regards to labeling it, is the fact that it's done within the season, or you feel it within the season. So as autumn kind of comes along and the leaves start falling and the nights get shorter, it begins, and everybody talks about that as well, about the fact that they start to kind of struggle when the nights get short, and they hate the winter, and they hate those you get up in the morning, it's dark, you're by the time you get home from work, it's dark. You just seem to be living in, say, depending on where you work, obviously, but say in an office, you're living in the bright lights of an office, or and while everything else is dark outside, and you miss the little the little part in between that where there's a little bit of light, and sometimes it's quite a low gray light, so it kind of it's not that good, it can. This is another interesting thing, I guess, for people with bipolar. Actually, it can affect people a lot more. Like they'll have like mania linked to a specific season, but the mania will be linked to summer, and so the lows during the darker months, which seems like it's a kind of a vicious circle for people with bipolar who suffer from it, because then it's the constant kind of instability of summer being the highs, which freak me out, and then the lows in the winter, which I can maybe deal with a little bit better. I guess they're less predictable, when I list out the things like listlessness and feeling, low energy and things like that. It does make a lot of sense. That this, I can deal with it a bit more because I can kind of combat it a bit more. But that's just my personal thing. But this is just going through what I've read on the Mayo Clinic's website. I do the work so you don't have to, basically. So see a doctor if you feel down for days at a time and your motivation, deep sleep, and concentration are affected. I guess for everyone, I think motivation can be a bit of a struggle in the winter months. I don't think that's obviously limited to SAD, but I think concentration is an interesting one, because I tend to get quite poor. My concentration gets very, very poor once I'm in a higher low. Probably equally disturbed in either one. But I think I put up a picture before about it, like, as I had a TV on, I was reading a book, had the iPad open, all this kind of stuff that I just couldn't focus on one thing, so I needed to have everything there. And I guess maybe that was my kind of me trying to combat it in a way that I was like, right, I'm covering all bases here, so I'll get out of this, or this day won't kind of be like yesterday. So I think that's another thing when you talk about seeing a doctor. It is very, very important if you are feeling all or any of those symptoms, or most of those symptoms, that you need to address it, because it's really not going to get any better. With obviously we talk about talk to people all the time. Talk to people if you are struggling, please do. But if it is an ongoing thing and you are worried, if you're having something like suicidal ideation, which is obviously very frightening, and you need to go to the doctor, and don't feel that you're bothering anyone. That's a very important one. I can't stress that enough. I thought that, and then everybody told me I wasn't, until they told me often enough that I realized that it wasn't the case, that it was for my own good, but also for the people who love me, to sort it out. So if you are feeling that, please go to the doctor. We can all help you, we can all talk to you, but we can't give you the real help that you'll need. The causes for SAD remain unknown, which was kind of strange for me, considering they've listed kind of why you get it. But some factors could be the reduction in sunlight, obviously in autumn, winter. The decrease in sunlight may disrupt your body's internal clock. Serotonin levels disrupted, which is a brain chemical that affects the mood. And when we talk about taking medication like antidepressants and SSRIs and things like that, they do obviously increase the serotonin. They talk about depression as the serotonin has been not being released enough or correctly in your brain, and that's why you are feeling depressed. And that's what they are for, the antidepressants. That's the medical reason, or the chemical way in which they help. So this is guessing on the sunlight, and the decrease in sunlight may disrupt your body's clock. It might play a role. Obviously, they don't know, but it seems like a reasonable. But I don't know how they measure that. So I guess that's why they don't know. There doesn't seem to be. There's not going to be able to be any, field study where they can gather a group of people and try and work it out that way. It's not exactly something that they could maybe someone's listened to this going, of course it would have been very easy. So, but look, this is just my thoughts. Don't mind me. Also, melatonin levels disrupted, which can affect sleep and mood. People talk about taking melatonin for sleep, and it seems to be, people seem to get a lot from it. It seems to be very popular. Please read the label, because of course, it affects everyone differently. Of course, for one person it's amazing, and the other person it's having some sort of a negative effect. But that this is another reason they believe that SAD people can be suffering from it. So I have written down here risk factors. More often diagnosed in women and also younger adults as opposed to older. Not sure why that would be, to be honest. It doesn't give a reason, but I just wanted to highlight it in particular obviously for any women or younger people who are there listening and feeling these things. It's important to kind of cover all these things. So again, like I said earlier about, talking to people, and family history may play a part if there are family members who have experienced SAD or other forms of depression. So we got again talking about genes and, the passing on through genes of depression and obviously seasonal affective disorder. I've talked about this before. I've talked about the idea of, me having a child and then worried about them being, someone who has depression and anxiety, and then having the kind of guilt of being, seeing yourself as the one who passed that on. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean because you had depression that the child will have depression. I know that. Again, just my mind, but again, yeah, just to keep on top of those things. If you are feeling this, maybe talk to people in your family, and if they felt like it before, again, it's more help. It's if your one of your parents or your grandparents, your uncle, whatever it is, has been through it, it's important to kind of learn from their experience and get their insights on what they tried, and then maybe you can try it. And like I said about the melatonin, it might work, it might not, but it's just as important to just give it a go and see. So major depression, people with major depression or bipolar disorder may see a worsening in mood in winter months. So again, it's like, as if you don't have enough issues when you are struggling with depression and trying to, do your stuff to have a positive impact on your life, then along comes SAD on top of it. So that would be, terrible. Living far from the equator can have an effect, north or south, mainly due to the short winter days and long summer days. So again, if you are the short winter days we've spoken about, but again, this can be there in the winter. Make sure, if you remember this episode, hopefully you won't be going through it. But if you are, remember that there is a possibility that that's just because the winter has gone. This is what it could be. Low levels of vitamin D. We did have someone on talking about vitamin D. I can't remember who it was, to be honest with you. But as a spray, rather, because I take a tablet every morning, vitamin D, but apparently it's not the best way to take it. But you get information from everywhere. But this person, I can't. Anyway, they sprayed it, and ever since that, their mood has improved an awful lot. Because vitamin D can boost serotonin, and obviously, the less sunlight, you're not taking in the vitamin D through your skin. So take the spray, take the tablet, take whatever your friends know about. That's the best way of taking it. Do it that way. Complications, it can lead to social withdrawal, school or work problems, substance abuse, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. Again, kind of going over the same ground, but this is one of those ones where anxiety, if that plays a part in your, in the depression, it can lead to, I've spoken about the social withdrawal, school and work problems, again, substance abuse I dealt with my anxiety through alcohol. So everybody has a ways of dealing with stress, but if it goes beyond stress to anxiety to SAD, then it's definitely something that needs to be to be flagged up, and like I name all those things. Again, don't deal with stuff through drugs or alcohol, because obviously it's not a long-term solution. It's especially with alcohol, because it's the next day you wake up and you're back square one. You're even more anxious. Prevention, no known prevention but you can manage the symptoms. So get treatment, as I said, like all the stuff I just listed there. Get treatment before or around when the seasons change. So it's like getting on it before the factor, get sorted before it's too late, kind of a situation. Before I get to my advice, which is take it or leave it territory, I'm just going to read out our ad. And listen, if Martin is listening to this, and I hope he is, maybe we can think about switching this ad up, Martin, just because when people switch off when they've heard something over and over again, and this gives them a 30-second time to break and not listen. Maybe we can think about writing something else. But listen, for now, Fusion Training Centre, Monksland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. So yeah, I'll have a little drink before I start. It's very hard talking like this for this long. I never noticed that with talking with people, but obviously you get more of a break. Although people might be saying, I don't get a break when I'm talking to you. Fair cop. But so it's one of those things, like my advice is something that's not so much to do with SAD specifically, but more to do with depression and what you can bring into those seasons where you are struggling. So I think one thing, obviously, it makes a lot of sense to me anyway, would be to make the most of the daylight by going out for some exercise. And like, we all look outside the window, and I do it sometimes when I want to go for a run, but a bit of wind or a bit of rain is not gonna hurt you. It's about the endorphins of getting out there and walking or running or whatever you choose to do. But get out there and take in some of the daylight, even if it's gray and or foggy or something. It's important to get moving and get the endorphins into you, just so you can have a little bit of a tired evening with your legs a little bit tired, and you've achieved something and done something. Obviously, like I said, tell a friend or family member about the symptoms when they're coming on, because it's again about getting on top of things and being able to tell the person that you love that this is what's going on. This is what I've had before. This is what I'm kind of expecting to have with this, and be on top of things. Be assertive in those kind of things. You own it. Make the most of the dark evenings by watching a film, reading a book, board games, or even taking up a new hobby, something like knitting or writing. You don't have to be like, the thing is, we all think, this is another thing that I was thinking about recently over the break. I think we all think we have to be the best at things, there's no point in doing something if there's no end result of you being the best. Or talk about writing. If you're not going to get published, what's the point in doing it? There's many more points than getting published is great. If you're good enough to do it, there's so much more than getting published. In creativity, writing a book, writing a song, knitting, all those kind of things where you're creating something. There's a joy in it. Like films and reading. Like reading obviously is more of a solo pursuit, but again, if you've this is what I do in the winter. I sit down in front of the fire and I'll be watching some soap operas on the TV. Dreadful stuff. Best thing about the TV being on with soap operas, I don't care what's happening in them, so I don't notice the noise in the background. It's perfect. But the fire's lit, and it's just it creates this kind of warm, homey atmosphere. Try that. But board games is another thing, because it includes other people. It gets you out of your own head. Gets you out of the funk maybe that you're in for a couple of hours. Again, watching a film with a loved one, or even watching film. If you could pick a good film, pick something that you love, like a comfort film that you might have seen 20 times, and just sit down and watch that. And if it's a comedy, have a laugh, or if it's something sad, have a cry. That's good as well. We all have to get it out of us sometime. Yeah, sorry, I went over this already, but increase your vitamin D through food intake, tablets or spray. If you have one, light a fire. Like I said, lifts the mood. There's something really seductive about looking into a fire as well. It's like they say that about water and fire. There's something quite seductive about it. So do that. There is another option, which is light therapy, which they use quite a lot in the northern European countries, obviously up in Scandinavian countries, because they have even less light than we have. But you can actually regularly buy a light box, which is used for around 30 minutes to an hour each morning. Google that. They aren't that expensive, to be fair. I looked them up. Um, they look well, from what I see, they looked very effective, and from some of the reviews that I've read, they sound very effective. That because the light from the box stimulates the light that's missing during the winter months. So flick it on half an hour while you're still in bed or whatever, before you go to work, and take in some of that some of that sweet light. It encourages the production of melatonin, which aids sleep, increases serotonin, which affects your mood. So that's again talking about serotonin and melatonin, and doing it in a natural way where you just have a light box in your room. Um, um, but it, but to stay on top of things, I guess, it helps in the short term, but SAD may appear again the following year. So it's it's something it's not the cure for it, but it's certainly something that helps, and it's effective. And it's like I said, in Sweden they have light rooms, which are called, here we go, Lusrum, Ljusrum. I'm sure I didn't do that justice, but the LJ is Freddie Lundberg used to play for Arsenal, so I'm good at that bit. The rest I could be killing. So bright lights. So sorry. See, in Sweden they have light rooms, so bright lights and bright lights and wall, where you wear white robes, white slippers. You get 30 minutes in the room. Can make you feel more relaxed and in a more positive mood. Which again is basically a larger light box. So have a look if you are thinking, that you may be suffering with SAD. Have a look at a light box. Have a look into melatonin, serotonin, all those things that I've just mentioned, please. I hope that was helpful to somebody. I thought it was worth covering because it's something we haven't talked about before. I'm recording this on whatever it is. What day is it? It's the 8th of January. So we're in the middle of winter. So just have a look at it. Hope it all helps. And yeah, so that's SAD. So yeah, to go and look, I hope, like I said, that's what I could do. So I've read the advert, so I'm ahead of myself as it is. What? No, another drink. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, before I threw my copy away. I wasn't finished with that copy, but I wanted to talk a bit about resolutions. Okay. And you will have seen this, I'm sure, all over your social media or the internet or whatever, about are they good or are they bad, or all those kind of things. And it's something that I think about quite a lot. So the first question, like, are they good or bad? Resolutions, okay, especially giving something up, are hard or easier in the depths of winter, going back to SAD. So as we've been talking about, if you are, say, for example, okay, say you are someone who's suffering from SAD and you decide, okay, on January the 1st, I'm going to give up cigarettes. We'll use cigarettes as an example, because a lot of people, it's either a diet or cigarettes that seems to be the main ones. And you're suffering with depression, SAD. It's going to be way more difficult than you would if you were feeling good. Because imagine you're feeling good and you're training or something, and you're like, I have to give up cigarettes now, and it's the middle of May, and it's bright outside, it's sunny, you're able to go for your walks, you run, you're not sitting around watching TV in the evenings in front of the fire, all those kind of things. It's going to be easier to give up cigarettes. It's going to be easier to give up food, or not to give up food. That's a ridiculous statement. To cut down on food because you're out and about, and the sun is out, and you've things to do. You can do gardening, things that take your mind off. You go and cut the grass. But in winter, the options aren't really there. So you're inside watching your TV. It's raining out. You're in the fire. You're smoking your cigarettes, or you're doing a bit of comfort eating. We all put on a few pounds over the winter. Everybody does. Well, nearly everybody. And then it doesn't make it any easier that way. So it's I'm not sure it's a good time to give them up. Well, if New Year's was on June the 1st, it might suit better for people. That's again just my thoughts. So there's a negativity to it as well, giving up chocolate, we'll say, because you want to lose weight. There's a negativity to that, because your idea of your own body is probably not the best. You're critical of yourself. Um, and that's another problem when it comes to resolutions, because there's a negative relationship with what you are trying to give up. So when you talk about resolutions of trying to take something up or start something, that's easier because it's more of a positive outlook. I'm going to join a gym is a more of a positive thought than I'm going to give up cigarettes, because there's pain in joining the gym as well, especially if you've got a tough personal trainer or whatever you might have. But it's still a positive step to go to the gym compared to something like smoking, trying to give up smoking, which is something that, you think you can't do without. Like, I'll be so anxious if I give up smoking. So apparently, this is what I read, right? So January the 12th has been referred to as Quitter's Day. And what day is this? Sorry, 8. So we have 4 days. January the 12th has been referred to as Quitter's Day, as large numbers of people begin to struggle with their absolute resolution. Absolute is inverted commas. This is actually out of an article from the Pagosa Spring Sun. I don't know how I found it, by John Locke. So he mentions this about Quitter's Day. So this is an American publication. And, people get to the 12th and they pack it in. I think I can vouch for that when it comes to eating. Stopped eating. I mentioned it on here, I think, that I lost 8 kg there in November to December. And the initial first 2 or 3 days, you're kind of like missing the sugar, because I had kind of cut out any kind of sugars and sweets and stuff. I know there's sugar in pretty much everything, but I'm talking about like sweets and cereals and things like that. And I thought the first 2 days I was kind of wanted some sort of sweetness, sweet taste. But then it kind of went away, but it came back then, and I don't know if it was 12 days now, but it was certainly in and around where I started to feel a bit, well, I've done my thing now. I can kind of go back. That said, you would have lost maybe 2 kg. So I thought I could go back, but then I kind of dug in and had to, we all have to dig deep at points when we are giving up something. And again, I just wanted the idea of, getting into shape for myself so I could train harder than I have been training, which is just for myself. There was no nobody helping me or telling me I needed to lose it all or whatever. Weight loss is a problem for instance, because people focus on the scales in front of them and not the final goal, because it is. I'm sure some people will be listening to this and they've done that whole weight loss thing and they've stepped on the scales and they're like, oh, I'm off a couple of pounds, and they're consistent for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then maybe the 4th week they don't lose anything, and maybe the 5th week they lose 1 pound, and maybe and it starts to level out, because it will start to level out. Like I couldn't have lost more than 8 kg without doing something silly, and that wasn't my intention. So it'll level out, because a certain amount of the fat, I don't know anything about this, but I'm just going by myself off my own thing. But it would have got to the point where I would have just, like, as I say, leveled out, and I couldn't have gone more unless I cut out a meal, and that's not the way forward. So it's like, don't focus so much on the scale and more on the final goal, and work hard, outside of the scale and or outside of the house, rather than just not eating. It's not about that. It's about doing it in a healthy way. And small changes towards the bigger goal are far more helpful. Like I said, just going out, getting out for a walk, things like that. The positive side of resolutions would be that you do focus on a goal, to clear your mind. So it's like that. If you are someone who's thinking in a certain way, where they're not obsessed about the scales, they know they want to lose a certain amount of weight, or they want to be in a certain body shape, but they're not obsessing about the scales, and they're not obsessing about looking themselves in the mirror and all that kind of stuff, but they know what the end goal is, then that's suggested that it's a positive way of looking at resolutions. I don't really do resolutions on the 1st of January. I tend to, like, if over the year, if I have something to do, like losing the weight recently enough, I had my willpower comes about through OCD. I think it's if I have the bar, the chocolate bar, it plays in my mind and it goes around and around in my mind, and it's very upsetting, kind of irritating. I don't know what the best word for it really is, but it's just one of those things that you get in this mindset where you start really taking apart all the achievements that you've had up till then, and it becomes like not a positive thing this while last. Even if you've lost half the way you wanted to lose, it just, you've eaten a chocolate bar, it's the end, you've ruined it, and I think that's a slight OCD thing that comes in with that. So it helps with the willpower, but it's not always a good thing. Like this, so they say, like, you've probably heard this before, first of a month or starting on a Monday has never helped people. It doesn't help me anyway. It's not like, I don't like to remember the date. That's one thing. Like, I don't know when I started doing the diet, a recent diet, or eating plan, whatever. I like, you might know, oh, I'm a week in, but I wanted to lose it. I didn't want to know exactly when it was. Like the first of something, I didn't want it to be. Why not leave it till Thursday the 8th, or something like that. Whatever date is in your mind, just a random date, rather than it seems to psychologically help in some way. Well, it seems to help me psychologically in some way. Unfortunately, pressure can play a part too, because like, people will ask about your resolutions, and if the resolution isn't going well, we start to feel guilty. We beat ourselves up. You feel like a failure because other people might be going, well, I haven't smoked in however many days, and you're struggling with whatever your resolution was. It can often be like a pressure thing, not a peer pressure thing or anything like that, but just the idea that if everybody else is doing it, why can't I do it? Because I'm terrible. And then you go into a negative spiral in the middle of January, which is not the best time to do it. I don't think the New Year's things are necessarily a good thing. I think it's good to maybe make a list, of goals for the year. So you can, and take kind of smaller steps to get there, so you can remember. You don't have to do everything at once. Like, it can be a slow process. It's like getting fit, getting your cardio good, or getting your strength, improving your strength in the gym. It's a slow process to shape your body in a different way, and that should be seen in everything, really. That these things are slow process done. They can't all be done in a day. So, like, yeah, it's like a bad thing to like. It's not a bad idea to talk to people about the resolutions as well, especially if they are something big, because they will see it from a clearer perspective. They will see it from another way. That they may be able to help you in a certain way on how to approach it, rather than you freaking out about the idea that you've fallen off your wagon or whatever you're on, and you can't get back in. And if you're listening to this on Wednesday, God, my maths is so bad. We're gonna say 12th, 11th, 12th, yeah, Wednesday the 12th, and that is Quitter's Day, by the way, according to John Locke. If you have tripped up on your resolution already, that doesn't mean that it's over, like, till next January. It's you can do it. You can start again. You can go again. Get back on the horse and go for it. Resolutions for me, I guess with the word, it leads to me thinking with bad connotations, but they're not. In resolutions, in a sense, aren't in every sense, aren't a bad thing. It's just the way you handle them, the way you look at them, that I think is the most important thing. So take it easy on yourself. Don't be beating yourself up. It's January. There's a long way to go, a very long way to go. So I've written down a couple of things that I want to just talk about before we go. Personally, what I'm looking forward to in 2022, again, it's like, I was thinking about this as well, and it's just kind of doing the podcast. It's reading more books. It's being more creative. Something I kind of lost in 2021. I wasn't creating anything, which is an important thing for my mental health, I think. Play the guitar a bit more. There's it's about learning, I guess, with everything I've spoken about, and it's about well, I learned so much from this podcast from everybody who comes on, because everybody's got their own thing and their own expertise, and we've got a couple of people lined up for the next couple of episodes who are going to add to that again. And for me, it's fascinating to kind of learn about this, and I hope it's fascinating for anybody else who listens to a lot of the episodes, or new people listening, that they look back on the episodes we have and find someone that fascinates them and teaches them a thing or two. And I've been very lucky to have these people on. So to kind of keep learning, talking to great people, keep it moving, really. Yeah. So again, I've written down be creative. That's the kind of key for me this year. I think to be more creative. Write some stuff. It doesn't have to be great. It's nobody has to read it. It just has to be written for me to be able to feel good and feel productive. Because I do some hours of Martin, teach kids classes, which is obviously great. But you want to feel like you're being productive as well. Because a person can go out to a day job 8 hours and be productive for those hours and enjoy their job. I'm talking about people who enjoy their job, but come home and they've got their productivity done and they can rest. And I think I want to have that kind of sense of achieving something within it. It doesn't have to be every day that I write, but even if it's a couple of days a week, that I can get like a short story written, or I'm not going to write a novel again or anything. God, that was enough. I don't know if I told you about my novel, but I wrote a novel called A Holiday from the Head, and it was basically about me with the mental health after I had the severe problems, and it was it was an interesting one. I think it helped at the time, but it's a lot of work. Like, and I think short stories you can jump in and out of them a lot easier than you can a novel. I think a novel is it consumes you. It doesn't give you any chance to rest or to breathe. And I don't really want to kind of go through it again. I want to experience the joy of writing. And short stories are really, really nice to write as well. They're very complicated. They're obviously a condensed version of a novel. And if you read people like Raymond Carver or Alice Munro, John Cheever, the way they write short stories, it's like a whole world in like 8 pages. It's fast. It's small little things of that something in a Raymond Carver story can hinge on the flick of a cigarette ash. It's like, I don't know how he does that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to achieve that level of skill or craft, because I wouldn't be able to. But I think just being able to create stuff like that and feel clever for a change, and just I like to do that. I think that's another thing I'd like to do with regards to actually moving about the place would be go to a few more places in Ireland. Like, because I disappeared off to Galway last year. I think it was September, could have been October, but just for a night, like, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of stress to it, a lot of stress for me. I get freaked out far too easily on things like public transport and in places that I don't know. So I think that's difficult, but it's a good challenge for me to try, to have a place to go, list it down. I want to go see such and such. It doesn't even have to be something specific. It doesn't have to be a monument or whatever, but just to move around and get more ideas. I think you get ideas if you're talking about writing, if you're talking about, you can't get these things from just sitting still. There has to be, there has to be different places, different faces, you take so much in from that. And I don't necessarily believe I need to travel the world to get those experiences. I think we often talk about Ireland as a place where we all go to, well, not me, but a lot of people go to different places all over the world, and they haven't even seen, the Blarney Stone or something, and just that was an example or whatever. But, they haven't been to Giant's Causeway, or there's so many things around in every county. There's things to see, and that'd be nice just to do that. I think it expands the mind, isn't it? That's what they say anyway. I don't know. Has my mind been expanded, I wonder, from travel? Probably has, actually, because I've been to the States a few times, and when it wasn't the whatever it is now, I don't even recognize it as a country anymore. It's very strange place. But I think I guess I did learn a lot over there, the number of times I went over. But I think that doesn't necessarily mean traveling with that in our country doesn't broaden the mind. Talking to people that, like, swinging back to this podcast, talking to these people broadens my mind all the time. I want to figure out why this person is a a life coach or a psychotherapist. Like, why have these people chosen these things? Like, why when I was, why I wanted to be a sound engineer when I was 17 or 18, and I didn't get to college. I'm not going into that because I'm sure my parents are probably still a bit annoyed at me about that, rightly so. But yeah, like, why does your brain choose these things, and why do you dig in like for 4 or 5 years to become a psychotherapist? Or and I think like that to me is fascinating alone without them coming on. But then when they come on, and you can tell from the person their enthusiasm that they have for their job. I think that's great. Like, or maybe it's not their job they're talking about on here. Maybe it's just their hobby. Or we've had many people on here. I'm gonna go over them again, but we've been very the mixture of different people. But I guess what I'm saying is that's broadened my mind. And I think maybe a little bit of traveling around Ireland would do the same thing. Maybe even do some on the road stuff with John. John's a driver now. He's got a beautiful little Mini Cooper, class car actually. But we talked about it before. Obviously, COVID hit, and then we couldn't really do anything about it. But we don't have a lot stopping us from doing it. To be honest, I think with the exception of getting a proper camera that we can set up somewhere and have it pointing at me and our guest. Apart from that, I think we're all good. Like, I mean, we can run off the laptop and have the microphones and everything like that. So there wouldn't be a lot stopping us from going. We'll have to do it eventually, I'm sure, for people who are very, very busy, and maybe someone who does a lot of work while they're on TV or podcasts and whatever. We may have to travel. We were going to do it for Ashling Daily when back in episode 50, but obviously we couldn't. So the Zoom took effect, and it's worked really well. But it'd be lovely to get back to that face-to-face thing, because that is more of a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me doing Zoom, but it's more of a challenge for me sitting down, talking to someone, asking them personal questions as they look me in the face, in person, breathing the same air, not in breathing the air. That's not at this time. Don't talk about breathing the same air at this time. But actually, I got my booster. That's another thing that happened over there. My BFF, Josh, actually gave me the booster shot. And in case you don't know, he's a pharmacist. He's not just going around with boosters and jabbing people. But yeah, we'll think about it. I need to annoy John a bit more about it, to be honest. He's this is all in my head. Sometimes John listens to the podcast and sometimes he doesn't. And then don't want to surprise him too much, but I'll let him know at some point. But I guess that's it for now, without me waffling on anymore. I enjoyed this one. This was a nice one, like I said, just to get on, cover SAD, cover resolutions. Hope everybody's doing well in the new year, the 12th of January. Let's push back against Quitters Day. That's what we need to do. Obviously, I want to thank John for the tech. I want to thank Nathan for the promotion. 3-man team now. Anybody else want to come on board? You do the interviewing, and I'll keep my name on it. I'll trademark the name, and I'll just chill out. I want to thank my mom, my dad, my granddad, for everything they did in the year. During Calvin for what they did, especially, fair play to the boys, but Jar stepping up to do the 100th episode, the logos again. Thank you so much for that, Jar. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch our faces move. It's quite a sight. Not so much this one, but when we have other people on, it's quite a sight. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And for the podcast platforms, we have Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts. I'll tell you what I'll do, right? My New Year's resolution is to learn the other the other podcast names that we're on. But for now, there's those four. Before we go, obviously, I want to thank everyone for all the support in 2021, all the shares and the likes and the listens and the watches and the subscribes and all those things, for getting in touch with me. It's really nice when people give me a shout and just to say hello. Even it's good to know that we've set this up for the right reasons and that people are taking something from it. And listen, let's make 2022 a better year. let's hope we get some normality back, whatever that is. But we, as a concept, I guess, it's not this. But that's it. Have a lovely week. We'll be back next week with a guest, a very good one too. I'm really looking forward to it. But anyway, thanks a lot, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.